Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The Army's decision to consolidate its official social media accounts is raising concerns well beyond public affairs. Small businesses that rely on LinkedIn, X, and other platforms to track contracting opportunities, connect with program offices, and learn about new requirements say they could lose a key entry point into the acquisition process. The move comes as Army leaders continue urging non-traditional companies and commercial firms to do business with the service. Federal News Network's Rachel Cohen has more on what this could mean for the defense industrial base. Rachel, great to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, Terry.
What is really happening here? What is the Army changing in its social media presence, and why has it caught the eye of companies?
Yeah, the Army is shrinking the number of official social media accounts it uses. So all of the kind of lower level offices, unit level social media accounts are no longer authorized. So they're really kind of centralizing their messaging under the high level offices. So the secretary's account, chief of staff, SMA, the commands, the installations themselves instead of the lower units on the installations. So, the goal, it says, is to speak with a unified voice, protect OPSEC, and, it says do a better job of informing the public and families. Whether or not that plays out, we'll see. But, some of those accounts on the chopping block are the ones that small businesses and, the acquisition community at large rely on to learn about industry days, contracting opportunities, outreach events, things like that. So the concern isn't really about losing posts on, Twitter or LinkedIn specifically. It's more about losing that direct, very easily updatable line to the acquisition community.
It feels like the pendulum is swinging back then, because for years the Army and probably the other services have looked at social media as a way to reach their interested community, their families, their clients, and their contractors as well. So when it's swinging back, what is the access that small contractors especially will lose in the process?
Yeah, so instead of having people find things through, a platform like LinkedIn, the Army is saying, all right, all of our stuff is going to be posted on official websites, go there instead. The issue with posting on official websites is that's often a slower process, requires contractors in a lot of cases, they outsource website management and that kind of thing. And it's not like a social media platform where you can just go and comment, right? It's not the same sort of posting like, here's this, opportunity to provide a, subcomponent of, whatever system. And then an interested business could say, oh, I love to see this, right? It's just that more, kind of conversational, kind of, a more informal way of industry being able to find things. So, they'll be posting them on official sites. They'll be posting them on sam.gov like usual. But, it really losing that type of communication means that small businesses have to have a little more granular knowledge of how the very wonky defense contracting system works. And it means, that doesn't really give them the ability to sort of build those personal relationships like you can build through social media.
The Army says it's trying to attract more innovation and commercial technology. What impact do you think this change in policy will have there?
It could. On the one hand, you have the defense secretary and the services saying we need more new entrants, we need non-traditional contractors, really looking to the commercial sector for cheaper, faster procurement. If the commercial sector has a harder time navigating the system, right, they might miss out on opportunities that they may have otherwise seen. And so one person who spoke to me said, it's not necessarily that there won't be any contact, between small businesses and the Army, because, there's still other avenues. But as the Pentagon is trying all of these new ways of bringing in companies, all these new contracting vehicles that are not necessarily the traditional process. There's a lot more for companies to know how to navigate. It's becoming more of an alphabet soup of contracting possibilities. And so his point was understanding what the best route might be for a company to get involved in a program or to show off, whatever it's created, as well as, going through sam.gov. Those postings aren't always written out as neatly or as accurately as they could be, right? Things aren't always titled very clearly. They're not always separated out in a way that makes sense. There's a lot of times when opportunities are nested under, other contract opportunities, other task orders. And so, it will make it harder for companies that don't have as much experience in that ecosystem to find stuff that they could offer that is innovative, right? That thinks outside the box a little bit more than, maybe the vendors that DoD currently uses.
As you've been talking with small business advocates and industry groups about this, do they have some things on their list that they wish the Army would do differently here?
They obviously want to keep as many lines of communication open as possible. One person said there are other tools that DoD could start using to kind of make postings a little less complicated, make them a little bit easier to find. He suggested maybe AI could help untangle that web a little bit. Others are saying, what's the point of this? The other services aren't doing this. This is a great resource for us, come back. The assistant administrator of NASA's small business office commented on the Army Small Business Office post and said, hey, come follow us instead. I think people are asking them to be clearer in other venues. And people are saying, okay, well, if we can't talk to the Army as easily, like maybe we'll go look at the Air Force or the Navy.
That's Federal News Network's Rachel Cohen. Rachel, thanks for bringing us this story.
Yeah, thank you.
You can find her full story at federalnewsnetwork.com.